Hi, my name is Maiki Sagawa and I am the international reporter for EarthshotTV. Today I'm coming to you from Costa Rica, where we're meeting a company called voyage. voyage is a nonprofit focused on eradicating the gender disparities in coffee-producing communities in Latin America.
Hi, my name is Sunghee Tark and I am the co-founder and CEO of voyage. voyage is a feminist, non-profit social enterprise that collaborates with smallholder women coffee producers so that they can drive their communities towards a more equitable and sustainable future. I grew up in a rural South Korea, surrounded by very strong female figures, and one of them was my maternal grandmother, who's been a rice farmer all her life. And I was exposed to agriculture growing up, and I think that was always kind of like part of my life growing up. And I knew nothing about coffee. So in 2016, when I came to Costa Rica for the first time with my co-founder Abhinav, that was the first time when I learned a little bit more about what was beyond the cup of coffee that I was drinking every day. And I think that was kind of a moment of realization for us that while there's so much great things that exist in the coffee industry, there was still a lot of injustice, I think, that existed, especially because of the colonial history that coffee lived through. A lot of it was being shown through the challenges that women, especially smallholder women, were facing in their day-to-day life. That was kind of a big push for me because I was able to easily think of my grandmother and what she would have done in certain situations to imagine what was possible for some of the people that we were meeting in Costa Rica. So coffee goes through a very long process. The reason is because coffee usually gets consumed in a country where it's not processed. Usually in Central America, coffee harvest is between November until about February. And once coffee cherries, when they once get harvested, go through several stages of processing that the farmer can decide or a miller can decide to kind of highlight the natural flavor that coffee plant has. That step is called processing. The wet milling more specifically, and once it goes through wet milling process, coffee gets dried and sorted to be export ready. And then coffee gets rested for about 3 months in a tightly sealed bag, usually in a warehouse or a cooperative, and then they get picked up by a logistics company with an exporting contract that's already been signed between exporter and importer. Once it reaches the country that it's going to be consumed, it again waits in a warehouse until the roaster or whoever is going to roast it is ready to pick it up from the warehouse. It gets then picked up, roasted, and then gets served in a coffee shop or sold in a bag of coffee. So usually from the moment coffee gets harvested, it takes at least 6 months until someone can consume it. Coffee is consumed everywhere in the world, and it's being produced by millions of people around the world. And because of the nature that the coffee industry set up, especially by the colonial power, there's lack of transparency in the industry. Many times, or most of the time, smallholder women coffee producers or smallholder producers in general don't necessarily know where their coffee is being consumed. And I think that's the root cause of everything that exists in the industry as a whole. Women make up at least half of the workforce on coffee farms and up to 70% of the labor force seen on coffee farms. However, there are only about 25% of the farms around the world that are operated and run and owned by women. It's really complicated to explain exactly why that is the case. However, there are so many cultural, social, and legal reasons behind it. Studies have also shown that women do up to a lot of work across the coffee value chain. However, their roles are often invisibilized because they are involved in harvesting, picking, and sorting, which doesn't often get registered in paper or contracts. And this also explains why they're found to be earning up to 39% or lower income than their male counterparts in coffee.
Hola, mi nombre es Jocelyn Falla, soy de Café La Chelita, una empresa familiar que se dedica a la producción, procesamiento y comercialización de café en región Brunca. Bueno, mi familia ha sido productora de café toda una vida. De hecho, yo soy la tercera generación de producción de café. Estar dentro de la producción es como muy fascinante porque es una planta, es como una persona que vos les vas dando y ella te devuelve. O sea, es lo más fascinante. Y después, cómo yo a ese café le puedo aumentar, digamos, su valor con el procesamiento de café beneficiado. Bueno, yo creo que sí, hay muchos retos. Creo que a veces te topas de frente con personas que piensan que por vos ser mujer eres más débil, ¿verdad? Que como decimos popularmente, te pueden llevar entre los zapatos y pues creo que eso no es así. Nosotras mujeres somos muy fuertes, muy capaces para desarrollar labores que también manejan los hombres. Creo que falta de equidad, ¿verdad? De género en la industria y muchas barreras que romper. Sin embargo, creo que ha sido bonito estar aquí y demostrar que sí puedo, porque de hecho la que se ha hecho cargo después de mi papá y mi mamá he sido yo, y ha sido bonito, ¿verdad? Ese reto de encontrarme con gente que quizás no valora mi trabajo y demostrarle de que yo sí puedo.
Climate change has had a tremendous impact on coffee growing and coffee production especially because it's an agricultural crop. The primary concerns that producers are sharing is increasing cases of plagues that didn't exist even a few years ago, and some of their varieties not being able to cope with these newly introduced diseases and them losing their production. Another area is that a lot of the land that used to grow coffee is no longer apt for coffee production, so they're having to decide what other crops that they could introduce to the region. So there are so many studies that have been by now kind of quoted to say that by 2050 we're going to lose more than half of the arable land for coffee. So definitely there's a big threat of climate change that we're able to see day to day. We are currently working with over 500 smallholder women coffee producers in Costa Rica. In 2022, we've expanded for the first time outside Costa Rica to start working in Mexico. We hope to grow our impact to reach about 2 million smallholder women coffee producers in Latin America by 2030. And eventually, we want to build a coffee supply chain that's equitable and just, that voyage doesn't have to exist anymore. If you're able to, it's really important that you start questioning where your coffee comes from. Ask the name of the producers and a little bit more about the coffee. And if you can, support Women Power Coffee, because with your purchase, you're going to make a lot more difference than you can imagine in the coffee world.